It's interesting. At the beginning of the year, I wouldn't have mentioned Zach Taylor's name in that coaching carousel of possible firings, but they're 1-4 right now. And Burrow and Chase have gotten on the same page. It's been pretty incredible to see, to be honest, because I feel like, at the beginning of the year, there was a lot of miscommunication. There were a couple of games where Chase even went under 50 yards, but clock management. And I don't know if you guys saw last week, I can't remember exactly what time it was, but it was late in the game. They had an opportunity, Evan McPherson, and yes, there was a fumbled snap that happens, but they didn't put themselves in a position to get an under 50-yard field goal. There was a lot of runs, playing conservative, and when you have a player like Jamar Chase on a third down, why don't you throw it to a boundary, incomplete or complete? With those great receivers, those top 5 guys, it's not going to be picked off. And I just felt that Zach Taylor has played a bit conservative in all the games he played, and he's fighting for his job. If they don't make the playoffs, this is another year, Super Bowl aspirations from 3 years ago that hasn't been successful. So, the AFC East, after Tom Brady left, was supposed to be the division, Dolphins, Jets, Bills to capitalize. They haven't. And I think that it starts with the Bills. The Bills haven't been that successful in the playoffs, but they look great the first 3 weeks. I'm honestly not so worried about them moving forward. They're going to win the division. The Dolphins, Jets, and Patriots aren't really contenders. I would like to see more, Josh Allen finding Dalton Kincaid. Me as, a fantasy fan myself, I drafted Dalton Kincaid, has not been productive. I think it's so important for them to spread the ball around. Shakir, Curtis Samuel, keep handing the ball off to James Cook, so underrated. Their defense is kind of mediocre at this point. I think that their front seven has really improved, but in the back end of their secondary, they really need to lock in. Because when you're playing these teams, Chiefs, Ravens, the Ravens game a couple weeks ago, I feel like I've always had this mentality that great teams don't get blown out. And maybe I'm speaking from a Patriots perspective, because I cried when I was younger when they lost the Super Bowl, and I'm like, oh, whatever, all these teams that won 3 games, you should be happy, right? But I think that it is evident that sometimes they lose their way, and it really translates to the whole game. But I think that, the pretenders, everyone in that division, and the extreme pretender is the Jets. I don't care what anyone says. This criticism should be, in my opinion, the majority of Aaron Rodgers. People can say, oh, he was put into this situation. He put himself into the situation. He's 40 years old, coming off an Achilles injury. I understand that, but he's not leading the offense. Communication with receivers is mostly on the quarterback. And remember, he went to Europe in the offseason. When we're talking about communication, there is no excuse when you're not in training camp.
Say what they want about James Franklin, and I want to get into that lack of success, to be honest with you, against AP top 25 teams for his whole tenure at Penn State. But what I love about it is he says, that's part of the job, and I own it all. I own it all. Most of these coaches, they may go to the line of owning, yes, I'm the coach, I'm the man. When we're talking, of course, the players are on the field, but as the coach, you got to command respect and be a leader. But they'll always add that snippet of our players got to play better. James Franklin put this all on himself, which I don't think it is all on himself, of course, because he's the coach. But I love it from a veteran and leadership perspective. And there's a reason why he's always back at Penn State. What I don't understand is if you're going to have something strictly for playoffs, how the playoff rules, correct me if I'm wrong, for overtime is both teams have a chance. Both teams have at least one drive. If the first team gets the coin toss, scores a touchdown, the opponent also has an opportunity. They don't score, game over. If they score a touchdown, tie game, next score wins. That's what it should be, at the minimum. I think that, and no shade to Sean Payton, he infuriates me, to be honest. I think that people call him an offensive guru, won Super Bowl, probably 4 divisions with Drew Brees, not that successful in the playoffs.
This week's Hoosier Highlight Athlete of the Week is IU men's basketball player Luke Goody. After a pair of 25-point losses, Goody and the Hoosiers got back in the win column by way of a 77-76 victory against Ohio State at the Schottenstein Center in Columbus, Ohio. The Illinois transfer led all scorers with a career-high 23 points, while shooting an efficient 57% from beyond the arc. Goody played his best when it mattered most, scoring 16 of those 23 points in the second half and in overtime, leading to his game-winning three-pointer with just over a minute remaining. Goody and the Hoosiers will continue conference play on Wednesday night as they take on the Northwestern Wildcats in Evanston. That's all for this week's Hoosier Highlight. Back to you guys at the desk.
Indiana women's soccer had a rough start to conference play last Thursday, dropping to number 20 Ohio State 3-0. After going undefeated in non-conference play, Indiana was held to just 3 shots on goal. It doesn't get any easier as they take on UCLA on Thursday, and Sunday they take on USC, another new Big Ten team. For head coach Erwin van Bennekom, it's exciting to see the adjustments he put in place against 2 quality opponents.
It was a thriller here at Andy Moore Field. Caleb Robbins alongside me is Adam Oppenheim for the Hoosier Network. Taylor Minute Grand Slam gives the Hoosiers the 6-5 win. Adam, what did you see there?
Well, I saw Indiana looking for anything to get back into the game. The goal for Shauna Stanton was to get back to Taylor Minnick right near the top of the lineup, and she delivered with 2 outs. Really good approach at the plate, and then just drills a ball over the center field wall. Big hit for Indiana. They were looking for it all afternoon long, and the senior delivered for the Hoosiers.
Earlier in the game, in the first inning, Stan and the Hoosiers used their first 2 challenges of the day on close calls at the plate and at second. What did you see there? And it was an interesting move for the Hoosiers.
It certainly was an interesting move because they used both challenges in the first inning, which means that you don't get challenges the rest of the game. And they lost both the challenges. You got to be sure on at least the second one that the call would get overturned, because there was a play at the plate later in the game that I thought Indiana was safe on and the call would get overturned, but they didn't have a challenge. So that's something, if you're looking forward to, the next games and some of those close calls in Big Ten play, how is Indiana going to manage the 2 challenges that they have?
And the story of the day may be Minnick's Grand Slam, but let's take it to the pitching end of things. Brianna Copeland, the veteran, was able to shut the door for the Hoosiers. How important is veteran leadership on the mound for the Hoosiers?
Well, it's certainly really important, but, I think you have to start with Jasmine Reyes. Janae Berry did not have a great start in the circle, couldn't get out in the second inning, but in comes Jasmine Reyes, works all the way into the 6th, 1 out into the 6th, in fact. Then Brianna Copeland just closes the door, really important. After Indiana had that giant bottom of the 6th inning to end up winning this game, this was a game that Indiana was dead to rights. The Screaming Eagles were playing better than them most of the game on the defensive end, as well as putting the ball in play, hitting it hard. And at the end of the day, Indiana, it was the Taylor Minnick Grand Slam, and Copeland was able to finish it out in the circle.
The 6-5 win gives the Hoosiers a bit of a break as they come back here against Iowa at Andy Moore Field on Saturday. For Adam Oppenheim, I'm Caleb Robbins. As spectators, we tend to recognize athletes for their athletic prowess and impact in the playing field. But for one athlete from Columbus, Indiana, being a leader and example both on and off the field are one and the same. Zach Horn is a shining example of not just success quarterbacking a team.
Here's Horn. Steps up in the pocket. Now hauls this one down the middle of the field. Ball caught. And at the 30, 25-20, and into the end zone for the touchdown. That is Cooper Horn, his brother.
But also quarterbacking mentorships.
As you work hard with people, as you become an older, higher position in that field, whatever that is, you earn respect when you do things the right way, and you have other younger kids look up to you just like you did to other seniors or juniors or upperclassmen.
When Zach was sidelined for his entire junior year due to hip surgery, it forced him to venture towards unfamiliar and new endeavors, sparking an interest in helping out in his community.
When you know how hard it is to come back from things like that, I think it encourages you and gives you a nice viewpoint of what others might be going through. And I think that certainly encouraged me to want to give back and help others exceed, just like, my teachers, my parents, my coaches all helped me out. It's very much about that community that you surround yourself with.
When Big Brothers Big Sisters, the nation's largest mentorship network, offered Zach the chance to mentor kids in the community, he embraced it with the same passion and commitment that he's always brought to everything in his life. It was just who he is, a natural leader, eager to make a difference.
Zach is just naturally a grinder. He grinds with his schoolwork, any kind of sports activities. He's high energy. He keeps a pretty good schedule and everything, and so he's kind of self-driven.
Some of those off-the-field programs, like the Big Brothers Big Sisters here, I was actually asked by a football coach my freshman year to get involved in the program. And I thought it was going to be a football program. I was like, oh, cool, we'll be with all the football guys. But no, he just told me to go do it. I signed up, I went to some of the meetings, and he let go. The reins were off.
In addition to volunteering for Big Brother Big Sister, Zach, for a senior project, helped set up a heart screening clinic.
For Zach's project, he not only brought these screenings to our community, but he also, they had to raise money to make them more affordable for people. We had to find volunteers, and then he trained students to be EKG technicians to actually do the EKGs.
We held 2 heart screening clinics here, one here at Columbus North and then one at Columbus East across town. And we helped screen hundreds of kids for much lower cost than what it would be at a hospital. I believe it was like $15 or something like that. And then provided some like scholarships to some kids who maybe money would be a struggle. The flyer for our thing there with the team with Zach Mago and Play for Jake organization, that was...
Due to his performance on the football field, academic prowess, and his work in the community, Zach won a National Football Foundation Scholar Athlete Award, the finishing touch on his high school career.
Kind of like a Heisman if you think about it, you know? But no, I was super fortunate to get this and had a lot of fun.
I remember just as a parent sitting in the stands and watching him run off the field and take his helmet off and celebrate with the team. And those are the things that made us so happy for him that he got to experience that. You know, it was just amazing for us too, to witness that he came so far, because we came along with him.
Currently, Zach is a sophomore at Indiana University, just under an hour from his hometown, the community he embraced, and that embraced him during times of uncertainty.
One of the biggest things from these experiences I've had with these kids is that they, right now, when they're young like that, they can really become anything. If you nudge them in the right direction, if you give them some points, they can achieve a lot.
For the Media School, I'm Caleb Robbins.